At long last, I'm back to the helmet. It's been several months. I've had a very bizarre and crazy year. So I'm finally getting back to this piece and very excited about that. I am going to do the Crest. So last night I sat down and did a little bit of templating and I came up with this as my shape for a crest. And I should point out right off the bat, I didn't go look at anything historical as far as looking for shapes for this particular thing. I merely went with the aesthetics of what I already have with this helmet. I am approaching this helmet from a little bit from a historical venue, but more so from an artistic point, and I'm going for the aesthetic of it. So I was just trying to capture something that I felt had nice lines and flowing and moving towards the direction of the shape that I would like to see. So you hardcore Greek geeks, historical purists, just back off right off the bat here and just let me do this. This is going to be, well, it'll be more historically accurate than something from the movie 300, but it's going to have a little bit of latitude for me to express myself on this one. But let's see what happens. So what I'm going to do is make a jig to make the crest. The crest will be pounded out of a piece of bronze sheet, and we're going to be doing some repousse work, some decorative sculpting within there. But first what I'm going to do is do a steel frame onto which I will pound my two bronze pieces on either side of this to create the shape for the crest. All right, so the pieces are roughed out. I just need to weld the joints together here, do a little bit of grinding, and then our die block is ready to do either half of this. So step one. I'm back. Okay, so I've taken my pieces, welded them together, and created this cool little thing here. Also cut some grooves in here for the roped, well, not actually a roped edge, more like a dental molding on what I'm doing for the edge treatment there. Anyway, got my little frame made up in order to work the bronze on, and actually, because we're doing two mirrored halves, I went ahead and worked on the first half there and got it roughed out. So that is what we're going to be achieving today. I'll show you the process on the other piece there. So that is what we're going for. We're starting with a piece of bronze like this, and I'll be forming that around here, and then we'll be moving to the pitch and some repousse to do our interior decoration, which brings me to my next point. So we're looking for some sort of interior decoration on this to embellish it, and what I decided I was going to do is put something in that would work with that shape. And every time I went and looked at Greek art, I kept coming up with this Minoan bull in Knossos, guys leaping over the back of this bull. Now, before you jump in there, you hardcore Greeks, I know that the Minoan culture predates the hoplite, Athenian, Corinthian, whatever, by about 1,000 years. And it's actually, I'm not even sure that Minoan is considered a Hellenistic culture, part of the Greek culture. They certainly, but they're on Crete, where they are now, but I don't think they were then. But I think that they still could have been an influence for the Greeks, and I'm going to take it on that they might have been aware of this type of artwork, and this would have represented a historical fable, because the Homer myths, I think, are tied in with Minoan culture as well, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, the big factor was that this bull actually fit nicely into the frame, that shape. It just kind of lent itself to the shape. So that was a big factor as well, and that's what kind of drove me to using that. Sized it down and got it so that it's floating in there, and that's basically my starting point for a nice dynamic shape in there, the Minoan bull. And then around that, I just looked up some other motifs that might work, and I found the scrolly stuff to be good. As a blacksmith, I use scrolls quite a bit, and I just thought, because of all the curves in here, it really lent itself well to rounded shape. So that's what I went with. This is my piece of artwork here. Not sure if that is really clear, but we'll get into it as we start raising it out in the pitch. There we go. Enough talk. Let's move on. Okay, so I've cut out my piece of bronze. I've got quite a bit extra for the edges. Kind of, you can see my other one here, and I keep this one here just to make sure that I'm actually doing the mirror opposite. So easy, so many times I've done that where I make two rights instead of right and a left. So idiot proof it, get it dumbed down so that I don't mess up. Now, before I'm gonna anneal this piece, I'm just waiting for my forge to heat up. While it's doing that, I'm just gonna get this positioned onto the frame, clamp it down. All right, so that was phase one. I've rough hammered, just using a hammer, brought it down to fit onto the frame there. Now I'm going to move to phase two, where I'm going to start putting in the roping, let's just call it that. So I'm going to get it, I moved up to a higher table, a platform that's a little bit easier for me to stand, a little more comfortable. So here we go. All right, so that completes phase two. I basically got my dental molding around the outside, so everything is roughed out in that regard. Now I want to start doing the inner shapes, get the bull motif on there as well as our little scrolls. So what I need to do is fill the form with pitch. So I'm going to grab some chunks of pitch and come in with some heat, get that heated up, clamp it down, and off we go. Okay, so that's pass number one. I've just pulled it off the form. I'm going to go anneal it. You can see there's quite a bit of distortion. So what I need to do is anneal it to soften it up again. And then from the inside, I'm going to push everything forward. And then I'm going to add some extra pitch here, knowing where I need it to come up there and try to create a better backer that doesn't cave in as much. So that's pass number one. I'm not sure how many more passes we're going to have to do to sharpen this up. I guess it really depends on how much time I want to spend, what level of detail I'm going to go to. So we will have to see what that actually is. Okay, that is pass number two. I have now established the highs and lows pretty good here. Some distortion happening again, some work hardening happening again. I'm going to pull it off and anneal it one more time, level everything out or get it nice and flattened up, back in the form, and see if I can refine the detail, get into these scrolls here and just sharpen things up. Starting to really take shape there. I did a little bit of stuff in the body there. It's kind of hard working with a two-dimensional, what was a fresco, so it was never 3D, and trying to put some depth into that. So what I did was just I've always got little figurines or statues or whatever here for doing different sculptures. So I had some deer and used them. They were the closest bovine type structure, just to give a plausibility to the body shape there. So seems to be working out okay. I'm relatively happy with it. Not sure how much more detail I'm going to bother putting on this. I could spend hours on this, another 20, 30 hours if I wanted to, but I might have to bring it in and make it a more practical shape. But let's give it one more pass and see what we come up with. Some time has elapsed and... Exciting, no? No? Tough room. Anyway, I've gotten half done here. Let's turn this around and you'll do my reveal the truth of it all here. If you're really pressed for time, you could just do half of a helmet and leave the other half open like a movie set. You know that. Anyway. Okay, so I've shaped this side of the crest here, and I've got it rough mounted onto the helmet. This is the way I will be fastening it here. We're going to be welding these in. Silicone bronzing, brazing them in would be more appropriate. Onto these nuts here so that I'm able to remove this thing. So now that I've got the one half done, I've got my other piece here that I just finished with the repousse. I've got a fair level of detail. I didn't go too intricate on it. Again, it all comes down to time, how much time you have to spend on that, and I realized that I had put quite a bit of time in getting this much shape, which I think is adequate for the general usage of this, or where people will see it, the distance that they will see it. Most people won't have it right up here where they're looking at it very closely. Looking at it from 5 feet and 10 feet, this is lots of detail, really kind of shows you, gives you some sort of visual interest. So I think it's adequate for what it is. Still fairly crude, but also in keeping with the rest of the suit, which I want to have a very tooled, handmade look to it. So anyway, enough of that. We're moving on. So now what I need to do is to cut the edging out on this one, roll the edges over and shape it to fit to the other half of this, and then we can braze those pieces together. So without further ado, I will begin that. Okay, so I've got my piece ground now and evened out. Everything is, most of the distortions have been knocked out of it. It's ready to fit onto the helmet. But what we want to do is now antique it or patina it to get it to match the rest of the helmet. With that, we're using gun blue, and to be quite fitting, we're using it in a Greek yogurt container. I think that is very important. To those sorts of details matter. Okay, so I'm just going to paint gun blue on. You've probably seen this before if you've been watching my videos. Okay, now I will neutralize the acid by dunking it in water, and whilst it is still wet, I will come in with some steel wool and just pull off some highlights here. This is always kind of the payoff for stuff like this. Something like that. Now, I was having trouble sourcing horsehair. I want to put the horsehair into the crest there, and finally found some last week. It has still not arrived, so I'm kind of annoyed right now because I'd really like to get this thing done, but we're going to have to shut off the camera and come back another day when that horsehair arrives. Through the magic of a video, I will see you in 2 seconds. Bye. And the crest is complete. Now, I didn't film putting the hair into it, but let me just explain what I did. My thinking beforehand was I had needed some sort of adhesive to be able to stick it in there. And I was thinking of using epoxy, which I have used in the past, but that's kind of a one-shot deal and you don't have a lot of time to work with. And in thinking about it, I thought maybe I would just go back to good old reliable caulking, and I got some silicone caulking. And so what I did is fill the whole comb part of that up there, and then just rammed in the horsehair, and it was able to just kind of get in position. Then I was able to move it around and had quite a bit of set time before it worked. So this worked quite well, and then I was able to go back in and put a little bit more in areas where it was sparse, put a little more caulking in there, and then get some more horsehair rammed in there and trim it. And like I've always been told, if you have a thick black caulk, you have options. The world is your oyster. So, after that setup, the hair was quite long, and it was very bedhead. It was all over the place. So I started trimming it down with the advice of some females in my life. Hairspray seemed to be the option here. And since I was going for this very extreme mohawk, we went to a store and just looked for some stuff, and I got to be high insta-hold. So for extreme hair features, this is the kind of stuff I should be getting a paid endorsement for this. What a great visual, dramatic use of their product here, but I'm not getting an endorsement for it, but got to be, think about me. So once I had the hairspray in place, I was able to get everything up and then do some final cutting here. I'm looking at it now, it's still a little bit of jaggedness. I might do some further refining, but essentially I've got the finished product here, and you can see everything came out quite nice. I think it's got a very stately and dramatic look to it. So, in conclusion, the crest, this whole assembly of the crest took me about 30 hours. And if I recall correctly, I think the helmet itself took about that same amount of time, maybe a little bit more. So by putting this crest on, just merely an aesthetic add-on, basically doubled the time on this helmet. So quite a bit of time to put this whole thing together. But I think the effect is quite lovely. I'm pleased with it. And I should mention, incidentally, I never looked at any reference material for the crest portion of this. I am approaching this from a sculptural or aesthetic aspect, so I wanted to just kind of just take my flow or my lines. I'm just trying to create my own sort of look for this thing here. So historical accuracy was certainly not my top priority on this. I think I probably came in with something that looks relatively historically accurate, but that was not my first priority. And I was just looking for something to get a real sweep through this whole thing, that it's got kind of a sense of drama to it. And I think I achieved that. I'm quite happy with it. The helmet itself I did a little bit more research on as far as getting historical accuracy. I chose to do one with a shorter face. I think, as I mentioned in the helmet video itself, a lot of these helmets have longer cheek plates coming down and extending right down almost onto the breastplate. I wanted to shorten mine up, make it a little more mobile. And I also made the eye slots a little larger than most of what I had seen. I also added the little ear scoops there, which was kind of a later period, even though most of the rest of the helmet is of an earlier period. So anyway, there you have it. I think this was a very fun project. It was quite challenging for me, and I really would like to do more of this Greek helmets and really explore this style of armor much more. So in future videos, look out for that. We need to finish off my hoplite suit. I still have several pieces to make. The back plate, that's the big one that's haunting me right now. We're going to get onto that very soon. And then the greaves, and then we got to weaponize that entire outfit as well. So still quite a bit to go on that. And then from there, I want to do some other bronze armor and videos in the future, so please stick around. We also want to do some more historically accurate or historical discussions about the construction of this and how this sort of armor went together, but this will be in the future. So for now, I think I'm going to sign out. So Thak out. See ya next time.